Going deeper now, we are underneath the iceberg. The brain creates the flow of time. To be honest, I find this difficult to separate from the previous idea of the past and future existing simultaneously, because if the past and the future exist simultaneously, then where does time come from? It's got to be an illusion of the mind. So I think it's kind of similar to that. Boltzmann brain.
No, actually, let me explain this a little. I never saw these theories like in detail, and I've never seen this one, but I can tell the previous one, which was about the past and future exist at the same time, and we're just moving in time blocks. That meant that there is no free will, like a destiny is a thing that it's set and fixed. But this means that we still do have free will. It's just that time isn't a thing. Like, time is just made up. Like, we think as time as this math equation, you know what I mean? It's not that. It's just not even describable. We're describing it in a way that it's suitable for our brains and our way of calculating the universe, but it's not really there. This means we have free will. It's just that... and also, the other thing it means is that the life is not even a second, nor it's like billions and billions of years. It's simply just a snap. It's like, can you describe what a dot is? You cannot, right? It's a concept. It's a dot. You go zoom in, it zooms in. Like, it never gets to a point where you can tell this is a dot. You can't. This is the same thing. You cannot describe time. So time isn't like a second or isn't billions of years. It's all in our mind. I agree to this in a way that it's not the same, but when you read my book, you'll understand, or maybe I'll make a video about it. I'm not talking about a theory. It doesn't really matter, but it's fun to think about it, and it's most likely true. As I said, our brains are calculating the whole thing is about our memory. You erase people's memories from their brains and nothing is there. It's so scary. Like, everything on this universe is either physically written somewhere, like our computers, or in our brains. Erase those two and it's over. These things, these memories, create the concept of time. And if there is no memory, there's no time. You know what I mean? So it's made up. This is what it's talking about.
One way to think about a Boltzmann brain is to consider that over an infinite amount of time, extremely unlikely things are guaranteed to happen. If the universe existed for an infinite amount of time, and there were just atoms floating around everywhere, then given that it's infinite, these atoms would form spontaneous structures and then dissolve, and every structure that you could possibly think of that can be made of atoms would at some point exist. The second law of thermodynamics says that entropy will always increase over time. And entropy is the amount of order or lack of order in a system. In practice, this means that if I spray an aerosol can over on this side of the room, particles will be released and they'll be on this side of the room. But given enough time, they'll spread across the room and eventually they'll be spread evenly across the room. Why does this happen? Well, because atoms are randomly vibrating in different directions, and given enough time, they just happen probabilistically to spread out evenly. But we are just talking about probability here. It's not impossible, in principle, for all of those particles that came from that aerosol can that are spread across the room to just spontaneously come together and jump into a water bottle sat on a table over there. It's just so unimaginably unlikely that we can basically treat it as a law that that's never going to happen. But suppose you had an infinitely existing universe. When you have an infinite amount of time, unlikely events aren't just probably going to happen, they're definitely going to happen.
This is very
interesting.
interesting.
Like the monkeys on the typewriters, given enough time, they'll produce the works of Shakespeare. It's not clear that would actually happen in that example, but you get the point. Randomness over an infinite amount of time is such that even the most extremely unlikely events will happen. In fact, they'll happen over and over and over again, because we're talking about an infinite amount of time here. So the realization that Boltzmann brain fame had was that in this infinite universe where everything that could be made of atoms is made. Sometimes brains will spontaneously form. Brains are just made of atoms, after all, and everything does get made. And what's more, brains can spontaneously exist with a bunch of false memories. A little bit like the simulation or last Thursdayism, the idea that brains can have fake memories of the past. Well, sure, I mean, memories are just brain activity, and that's just made of atoms. So there will be brains that spontaneously exist with a bunch of false perceptions and false memories as a matter of certainty in an infinite universe of atoms bumping around with each other. And given the fact that these spontaneously existing brains with fake memories are going to happen much more commonly than actual brains evolved in the traditional way, requiring the evolution of galaxies and stars and planets and simple life and the evolution into human life and the evolution of consciousness and all of this kind of stuff, right? If you want to create a real brain...
Again, the evolution of consciousness. It's not evolution. Awareness and consciousness are two different things. I don't want to repeat myself. Watch the previous versions of this video, previous parts.
With real memories, all of that needs to happen. And that's got a much lower state of entropy than just the brain spontaneously coming into existence. Now, of course, that less likely state of affairs will still happen. Remember, everything happens in an infinite amount of time, but it will just happen much less. So in this infinite universe of atoms bumping into each other, there will be far more of these brains, which are known now as Boltzmann brains, than there would be real brains with real experiences. And just like with the simulation argument, we have to ask, what's more likely? That you're one of these real brains with real memories, or that you're one of these much more common Boltzmann brains? And if you are a Boltzmann brain, what does that mean? It means that you, right now, are just a spontaneous arrangement of atoms in an infinite universe that at any moment is about to disassemble and you will exist no more. So ultimately this is another kind of radical skepticism. It's a little bit more sort of sciencey, so it seems to have a bit more weight behind it, but you'll have noticed that this relies heavily on the idea that there is an infinite past of atoms bumping into each other according to the same laws of thermodynamics that exist in our universe,
I was just going to say
which appears
this.
to be a finite universe which started 13.8 billion years ago. Of course, maybe our universe is just one of many. Maybe something came before the Big Bang, and maybe it stretches infinitely back into the past, but there's no reason to think that atoms would vibrate and move in the same way. So I think that the philosophical and scientific evidence that the universe is not in fact infinite is enough to do away with this hypothesis. But again, I am no expert on science. I am just a lowly YouTuber, so if I have got this horribly wrong, please go easy on me in the comments. Okay, now we're at the bottom.
Let me add 2 points onto this part. First of all, yes, we don't know if it's an endless universe with endless possibilities. We do not know that because we haven't discovered each part. Now, let's say it is, okay? There's 2 things you have to worry about. First of all, do we have to worry about this? No. Why? Well, to put it shortly, as I said on my last video, what about the humans before we discovered the universe is endless and before we discovered these theories? They were in the dark. They were born. They lived their advanced monkey lives. They died. Over. They didn't know. And they didn't reach anything. They didn't even go to Mars. They didn't go to the moon. Oh, it's a conspiracy. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Let's say we did. Right now that we know and we can go to a certain... we can travel to multiple planets, and with the help of science and AI and all that, we can discover some stuff. That doesn't mean that we are here. Our purpose is to discover those and to realize that, oh, there's this many universes out there because it's infinite. Everything is possible, so we don't matter. So we're not here to do that. That's not our life purpose, as it wasn't for billions of people who lived before us, before this age. Now we are playing God. Again, we're thinking just like scientists. And we're thinking inside our bubble of the universe. I mentioned this in my book, but I want to say it in my videos also. Science is the art of understanding the language of the universe that we are in. We cannot know how God created this universe, or how whatever, or how it created itself. We do not know what it is outside this universe. We only know the insides. Now, I don't want to go further because it will make the video way too long, but contemplate on this yourself. Go talk with Gemini or something. I don't have time for this. Maybe in another video. Talk to me in the comments. Now, my second point. My first point was that it doesn't matter. My second point is consciousness. Look, it doesn't matter if there are endless versions of us and a lot of things that we cannot even grasp out there in the infinity of life and space. It doesn't matter because we have consciousness. We have a soul. I'm not talking about our brain. I'm not talking about our awareness. I'm talking about our consciousness. That alone just disqualifies this theory because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter our size. It doesn't matter if we are alone or not. We have consciousness, so we matter because someone or something or some people, there is an indescribable phenomenon outside this universe that created this consciousness within our organic life capsules. That is life. You cannot call AI life because it doesn't have a soul, because that thing didn't put consciousness in that thing. It's simply aware, it's smart, but it's not life.
We're at the depths of the depths, and we're dealing with quantum immortality. There is an interpretation of quantum mechanics put forward by Hugh Everett called the many worlds interpretation. This suggests that when quantum events occur, every possible outcome actually happens, and that the universe kind of splits into different realities, each of which plays out a different possible outcome. Again, I have a full podcast episode on this topic, this time with David Deutsch, a fervent believer in the quantum multiverse. If you're interested, a link is down below. But take, for example, Schrodinger's cat. A quantum event determines whether a cat will die or live, and until you open the box, the cat is both dead and alive at the same time. The many worlds interpretation says that there are simply two branching realities, one in which the cat lives and one in which the cat dies. But they both actually happen. They're just different branches of reality that then just continue on independently of each other. So now we can consider a slightly dark thought experiment known as quantum suicide. Imagine the Schrodinger's cat setup, but instead of the cat, it's you. There's a button that you can press which, through the same quantum mechanism, has a 50% chance of killing you and a 50% chance of letting you live. You press the button and you're still alive. Okay, lucky you. You press the button again. You're still alive. You press the button again and again and again and again and again. Is this thing on? You're still alive. Either the machine must be broken or you have beaten incredible odds. I mean, every single time you press that button, the likelihood of your survival decreases to vanishingly small proportions. So suppose you press the button 100 times, 1,000 times, 500,000 times, and you're still alive. What would that tell us? Well, some people suggest it would tell us that the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics is true. If other interpretations are correct, and there's a probability of outcomes, and by pressing the button you realize one of them, it shouldn't take very long for you to die. Whereas if it's the case that every single possible outcome does happen in some reality, then consider this. Every time you press the button, two branches of reality are created, one in which you live and one in which you die. Now, which one of those branches does your conscious experience go down? That is, from your perspective, which of those branches do you end up in? Well, it kind of has to go down the one in which you remain alive. It can't go down the one in which you die because you're dead. There's no you for that conscious experience to continue in. Therefore, every time you press the button, your consciousness has to go down the branch of reality in which you survive. At least in this thought experiment, subjectively speaking, you can't die. I mean, there'll be many versions of you in different branches of reality which do die, but your consciousness is going to follow that branch where you stay alive.
Very
Thus,
interesting.
on the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, quantum immortality. And actually the final entry on this iceberg, you cannot die from your perspective.
That could be. That is very probable. But still, even if it's a very good theory, it's still a theory. And again, it doesn't really affect you. Like, that is not something that causes an existential crisis. Does it? It's not. It actually kind of feels better. You're like, oh, when I die, it's actually and I got this question. So when someone dies, let's say out of old age, she's 100. Okay, she dies. And in another life, in another universe, she didn't die at that time. Okay, when she lived, okay, when that she died. And when she died, there was another universe where she survived. So in that universe which she survived in, how is she gonna live any longer than 100 years? Okay, 101, 102, 150, 200, 300. How long is this going to go? That is a question that just popped up in my head, but let's say it's answerable, it most likely is. But the thing is, it doesn't really matter. First of all, it's not certain. Second of all, it doesn't matter. You still live your life. You're still here. You have to live this life with your consciousness that it's in your hand right now, and keep on. So when this quantum duality occurs, that doesn't really bother you right now. It's not a thing for you. When it moves on, it's that guy's problem in that universe, which is similar to you. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say on this.
I think is essentially getting at the same thing. One biographer of Everett states that, quote, Everett firmly believed that his many worlds theory guaranteed him immortality. His consciousness, he argued, is bound at each branching to follow whatever path does not lead to death. So what I was saying a moment ago about...
This is such a humanly view, though. Like, humans, what's their number one enemy? Death. It's built in us. This is our fundamental task, being humans. We are here to survive and to breed, and death contradicts those two. Why is this the case? I don't know, but this is the case. And death, being what it is, will cause all humans to create such theories, and this is like one of the best ones. That's almost convincing. But it's just like religions. You see how there's thousands of religions, and most of them are very obvious, they're so superficial, and then there are a few that are kind of convincing, not to the deeply philosophical ones, but to the normies, simpletons, or to the brainwashed ones. But when you look at them, it's like, whoa, this is kind of strong. But when you look into it deeper, you're like, it's not that deep. And there are many issues in it. Just like that, so that is a concept. Humans' religion is a concept that humans created because they didn't have answers for before birth, after death. Death. Here it is. Here's the scientific version of a religion or a philosophy. You know, philosophers did this too. Oh, dying is bad, so you have to live a fulfilling life. And how you live a fulfilling life? Be brave and do whatever you want and be good and shallow.
About your consciousness always following the branch in which you stay alive, this biographer is suggesting Everett believed this about life in general, that you will always escape your death because there will always be a quantum reality in which you survive.
This is my question, right?
And that's where your consciousness will go. Not just in this convoluted thought experiment, but just in life as a whole. Now, I don't know if Everett actually thought this. This is just one biographer's opinion, but...
And this is such a... No, that's not my question. It's close, though. It's just... It's not important thinking about these things.
It's an interesting thought. One interesting fact about quantum suicide
you'll
is
never know, basically what I'm trying to say. You'll never know. We will never know what it's like after death and before birth. You know, people have near-death experiences. My girlfriend had one too. And I believe what they saw is real, but it's just that is part of your brain still. That's not your consciousness, really. It's your brain, and your brain is much deeper. It knows things that you consciously do not know. So when you die, it shows you those. And also, you see how near-death experiences, people see what their culture inserted into their minds. Like, those are nothing. Same thing with hypnosis.
only ever verify the many worlds interpretation. It can't falsify it. It can't prove it false, because in order to prove it false, the person doing the experiment would have to die. So if you keep on living, you can prove the theory might be true, but you can't prove with this experiment that it's false, because this would involve dying first. It also has to be you that does the experiment. You could get somebody else to press that button for you, but if you watch them die in front of you, all you know is you're in the branch of reality in which they died. You don't know where their consciousness has gone. The only person who can ever know the result of the experiment is the person doing the experiment. Another biographer of Everett...
This is just like how I said, only you can know, you are conscious. No one can tell. People can tell you're aware, but they cannot tell you're conscious, you're not an NPC. You cannot tell people are NPCs or not. Only you can be sure of yourself.
Wikipedia tells me, Peter Byrne, says that Everett also privately discussed quantum suicide, that is this weird thought experiment that we've just been talking about, but adds that, quote, it is unlikely, however, that Everett subscribed to this quantum immortality view, as the only sure thing it guarantees is that the majority of your copies will die. Hardly a rational goal. I don't know about that, because it seems to me that the point is that, yeah, lots of copies of you will die, but the one that retains your conscious experience will always be the one that remains alive. Hey,
Yeah.
it's not super convincing, but
Yep.
neither are many of the other attempts
Well
at
said.
immortality that humans have come up with in the past. Now, this is at the bottom of the existential crisis iceberg. For a lot of people, the idea of living forever would be great news. But of course, it's also true that many people are terrified of the prospect of immortality. So if we've got no choice in the matter, and we're all quantumly immortal whether we like it or not, for some people that's good news, for some people that's bad news. And hey, to rehearse one overused, famous YouTuber-y motto, let me know what you think down in the comments. So that's the existentialist iceberg. I may have got some of them wrong. I may have got most of them wrong. If you think that I did, let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.